This was one of the most read stories on Bloomberg in the last 24 hours. There's no surprise about that. It has all of the facets of a story that would, just engage our audience on Bloomberg Technology. Let's get specifics. Why only 5% of jobs, and which sectors and industries are you basing your thesis on?
Well, thanks, Ed. It's great to be on the program. I think right now there is a lot of potential excitement, perhaps hype about AI. But if you look at its current capabilities, we are very far from AI, either generative AI or other types of AI, performing any of the tasks that involve a heavy level of interaction with the physical world. Construction work, manufacturing work, carpentry. Those, perhaps one day, will be much more feasible, for example, if AI becomes so much more advanced, so much more reliable, and can be integrated with so much better robots, for instance. But it's not something that's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years. Now, there's a lot of other potential for future AI, perhaps to perform some social tasks. But those are not going to be possible right now either. You're not going to go to an AI psychiatrist anytime soon. So if you strip out all of these, you're not going to be left with much more than 5% of the economy.
Professor, may I jump in and push back with a point raised by our audience when I said you were coming on, which is that AI technology is exponential, much in the way that the invention of electricity with time led to all sorts of breakthroughs. Right now, you're saying 5% of jobs, but in 2 years or 5 years from now, would you need to rethink your thesis or redo your calculations?
I should have prefaced this by saying there's a huge amount of uncertainty in any forecasts about AI, and apologies that I didn't do that. I try to do that all the time. I was very excited. I just jumped into it. There's a huge amount of uncertainty, and one source of uncertainty is exactly what's going to happen with AI in the next several years. I don't think that the most optimistic views in the industry, which sometimes people refer to as scaling laws, actually will hold water when you look at it within the next 5 years or 10 years, which say, just double the amount of data, double the amount of compute power, and then you're going to get double the amount of capabilities. Because to do that, we would actually need higher quality data. So if you want AI to do the job of a carpenter, you really need a completely different kettle of fish when it comes to the kinds of data. And something like that might be feasible with a different architecture of AI, but right now, all of the money is going into the sort of the basic dominant architecture, which has its limitations, both in terms of reliability, in terms of high-level reasoning. So that's the basis of my belief that, of course, generative AI and other types of AI will improve, but we're not going to see a qualitative jump within the next 5 to 10 years.
Professor, your belief, what is exactly it based on? What data, what historical norms are you looking back on to drive and push forward on this 5% take?
Yeah, I think this is why there is so much uncertainty. There's nothing that's identical to generative AI in the past. And that's part of the reason why people can hold very different beliefs. But what I'm basing that on is, first of all, other waves of digital technologies that promised a lot of automation, sometimes a lot of productivity improvements, sometimes a lot of changes in the way that we would organize our offices and things like that. And at the end, all of those changes have been very gradual. And also what we have seen over the last 2.5 years, where, there have been advances, but the advances haven't really been sort of qualitative in nature. They haven't really exceeded the sort of the basic capabilities of GPT 3.5 or GPT-4. So there will be advances, but I don't think any of those advances will very quickly change the way that we do various tasks in the economy. So, for example, I do not believe that in 5 years' time, when we look at the labor market, we're going to see certain occupations that will have completely disappeared.
But many would say, Professor, that they would be augmented. The idea is, perhaps the optimist view is, we will not lose lots of people from the labor force, but their productivity will be scaled. When you look at...
Yes.
No, please.
I think that's a very, very interesting and important point. I am not an AI denier or an AI pessimist. I actually believe AI has a lot of potential. And in fact, the real potential is exactly what you said, Caroline, which is that AI becomes a tool for workers to boost their productivity. And again, we're seeing some of that happening. Microsoft has a lot of co-pilots, some of them work, and they give some productivity improvements. There are a few areas where we're seeing really phenomenal improvements. Like, for example, if you want to write simple subroutines in one of the common programming languages, GPT-4 is great. Before then, GitHub Copilot was pretty good. So there are some things in which that sort of help to decision makers is possible. But again, when you look at the whole economy, that means helping carpenters, electricians, plumbers, blue-collar workers, construction workers, transport workers, people who are doing teaching, people who are doing journalism. Those are things that could be achieved perhaps at some point, but the reliability and the reasoning of the models is not up to the task yet.
Do you see specific job creation in specific industries from AI?
Well, there is one class of jobs where AI is leading a big boost, which is people who have AI fluency, either people who are AI programmers, AI integrators, or other AI-related service activities. But in my research, albeit from a previous wave of AI in the late 2010s, we didn't see any other job category get a boost in terms of hiring.
Right.
And there are some other jobs that I think there will be some retrenchment. So if you're in IT security and you're doing sort of routine end of IT security, there will be declines in job vacancies in that area because some of these AI tools can actually perform that quite well.
When you see the headline that OpenAI is worth $157 billion, when you see that NVIDIA is now worth almost $3 trillion, what do you make of that in terms of how truly the capital markets are analyzing the growth here?
Well, I think there's a difference between NVIDIA and OpenAI. NVIDIA is riding a wave which is based on the belief that those chips are going to become more valuable because generative AI and other types of AI are going to continue to boom, but they are generating revenues. OpenAI, on the other hand, I think hasn't found a revenue model that could justify the types of valuations we are seeing at the moment. Now, it may well be that in the future, suddenly their API is going to be so valuable and other firms are going to start building on it. But it doesn't seem like there are the kinds of applications that can have deep impact on the productivity of workers or the automation of firms that are going to be sold within the next 5 years, 10 years. So I'm a little bit skeptical, but on the other hand, OpenAI is also emerging as the market leader, and the current ecosystem in the digital world is firms that take over the market, and they can use all of the data, they can, interact with the consumers or the programmers directly. Those have become very valuable because of venture capital or other deep-pocketed funders.